the story applies to what kind of
one-star
content you're
hotel
making.
reviews. I can never been harder. It's like important to surprise your audience.
And look, this kind of advice, niche down, is incredibly useful. I mean, it works. I mean, look, there's tons of evidence that supports the idea that if you niche down, everything will be okay. And also, if you don't niche down, you run the risk of, again, try to talk to everybody, you will talk to no one. I mean, take a look at one of my favorite examples is like Thomas Frank, for example. If you don't know him, look him up on YouTube. He creates content specifically around Notion. So it's like a project management database, but you can kind of do whatever with it. So he shows people how to use it. And I think I saw him do an interview recently. It's freaking 113 degrees, and I'm about to do a workout in the garage, which is probably dumb. But anyway, he was doing an interview on how he's making like $200,000 a month from just teaching people how to make content, or teaching people how to make stuff on Notion, and then turning around and selling different projects to those people. Okay, so you have Thomas Frank. The next example is Alex Ramos. Kind of came on the scene predominantly talking about business content. Again, he blew up. I think he's pivoting a bit, more on that later. Mr. Beast, okay, even Mr. Beast, who, not that yes, he was pretty niche down already, but even more so, he's just predominantly making, what would you call it? Like game show type content. And it's doing incredibly well. So again, there's this notion that if you niche down, you will make more money, get more views. There's one little caveat though that most people leave out. It's fucking boring to do. Remember a few months ago, they had these content creators that were quitting YouTube. And then I'm talking huge content creators. They had millions of views, millions of subscribers, making boatloads of money, and they all kind of burned out. Like I think of Matt Diavella, for example. He's like a self-improvement guy. He turned around, had this huge team, and then kind of killed the whole team. Not killed them, but he fired all of them, I would imagine, or they quit or whatever happened. And now he's kind of on his own, and he's slowly trying to come back and make more content. Again, because the process gets really freaking boring when you're not making videos you want to make. So on paper, those who niche down get results, and it seems like the best thing to do. And to be quite frank, it is for most people. That is probably the best path to getting more views, making more money. And to be quite frank, I mean, I followed that advice. It made tons of sense because the idea was really simple. I make content around my business. Why? Because my business makes me money. So the logic was sound. I make content around what I do. I will generate more leads and make more money. And I'll enjoy the process of doing it because I'm making more money. Turns out it was incredibly wrong. All right, so here I am making content that I think I should be making for my business. I niche down, I'm making sales and marketing content all the time on Instagram every single day, on YouTube pretty much every single week. And again, I got to the point where I couldn't even stand my own voice. I hated the content I was making, and I also hated watching that same content from other creators. It turns out the stuff that I was creating, I actually don't even like watching, which should have been a red flag, but it wasn't. I just kept on pressing on until, again, I got to the point where I wanted to kind of quit. One of the things I've learned is kind of 4 core components or tips or lessons, whatever you want to call them, that I now follow that kind of allowed me to continue to making content. And before I kind of give these tips, I want to preface it with this. Again, if you niche down, you probably will have tons of views immediately. Your best months will happen, the most views, most money. What I'm looking for now is a continuum. Something that I've noticed is that if you were to make a video that hits 20,000 views, 50,000 views, 100,000 views, you now feel pressure to continue to make that video. You feel pressure to make that style of content, and it may be something that you don't even really enjoy doing. What I'm looking for is, what is the type of content creation that I could do that would still interest me in 10 years from now? Because I'm not trying to get a bunch of subscribers, money, revenue in my business today, and then quit tomorrow. There's been so many times where businesses, content creators have the biggest months ever and then followed by their lowest month ever. It's the reason why too, like on a side note, YouTube Shorts is kind of like a hit or miss kind of topic, right? You could flood your algorithm or flood your YouTube channel with tons of YouTube Shorts, and you probably get a bunch of views, bunch of subscribers If you stop doing that though, your channel kind of crashes. So again, these are the 4 kind of things that I've noticed that was working for me recently. Allows me to continue to create and move forward and enjoy the process, I should say. So let's start with number 1. What should I call these? I don't want to call them a tip because that sounds pretty prescriptive. Let's just say guideline, guiding principle. Use the Joe Rogan approach. So if you follow Joe Rogan at all, specifically his podcast, you'll notice he talks about this constantly, that he doesn't bring on guests that he's not interested in, right? He's not doing it he's not looking at guests and thinking, okay, which guest is gonna bring me the most views or the most controversy, or he just wants to bring people on that he thinks are interesting, whether, they are comedians or intellectuals, whatever. If he's not interested in it, it doesn't work. And I think that's the same approach that has worked for me thus far, right? I try to make content or select topics that are like not really that interesting, because I've done it before, right? I've picked a topic that I thought would trend very well, or I thought that would get the most views. And then not only does it flop, but I hate it, right? I hate the way that it came out. I don't like what I had to say about it. I personally wouldn't even watch it. And it really kind of boils down to, if I wouldn't be interested in watching it, then why do it? And I think, a bit of a side note, something that helped me with this for a while was, for most of the time I was making content, I had an editor. And so I didn't have to go through all the raw footage and do all that to get the video. And so I kind of took for granted, I don't want to say took for granted, but I kind of underappreciated the value of giving an editor actually good shit. And then when I started editing my own stuff, I was like, dude, I don't even want to listen to this shit. So anyway, first kind of guideline or principle that I use is make stuff that I actually would be interested in making. Use the Joe Rogan approach. Now, principle number 2 is for the content creators that happen to own a business. Because again, remember, I started making content because I had a business, right? So in order to have a business, you have to generate leads. Now, there's 2 ways to do that. You can use paid ads, or you can go organic. Use organic lead generation, gotta make content. That's kind of the whole point of organic. So that being said, I decided to make content. Okay, so there was a point in time that I thought, okay, this YouTube channel has to only be around business. Meaning I'm not gonna throw in personal stuff in there. What I have found over time though, is that 1, people these days don't care about just your business content. Like for me, talking about tips and email marketing or automation, like no one gives a shit at the end of the day. What they care about, or at least they're interested in, is how I live my life day to day. So blending in business and personal is like kind of important for 2 reasons. 1, again, people seem to be more interested in that these days. But number 2, it makes it interesting for you. Like I made this video not too long ago about how I was gonna start doing more like vlog style content. And part of the reason of doing that is, yes, of course, I think it would perform better, but also too, I want to be able to look back on these days, whether I'm, headed out with family or even the advice that I give, and see how much it changes over time. So principle number 2 is don't feel like you need to separate the business from you. You are the business. And again, in a lot of ways, your personal brand is you, and that incorporates your business. So blend the 2 together as much as humanly possible. And that way you can actually enjoy what you do. Number 3 is experiment on different platforms. So I mentioned earlier, obviously, that I'll make a lot of business style content, so blogs, so on and so forth. And a lot of that business content, I've realized over time, doesn't really have to be on YouTube. Like I could absolutely make a piece of content around email marketing or something like that, but I think it's better if I lay it into something personal. With that being said, I will test concepts on other platforms. So for example, recently I created another YouTube channel that's specific towards YouTube Shorts. And so there I'll make a piece of content very short to test something out on that particular platform. And then if it works, or I think it may resonate with somebody, or I thought it was fun to make, then I'll turn it into a long form content. So the other part of this too is like LinkedIn. So I utilize LinkedIn for my business. And I don't really talk too much personal stuff on LinkedIn. Not that you shouldn't. I'm just saying I personally choose not to. But again, that helps me know if a topic is worth further exploring for long form. Because long form videos, as you can imagine, is a little bit more work than just a quick little LinkedIn post or a YouTube short oftentimes. So I think the thing that I've kind of discovered is that if I use other platforms to test whether a piece of content or a topic is worth talking about, it makes the process of creating YouTube videos a lot easier. Because like, for example, say I go into a week's worth of research and playing around with how I'm gonna do a video and whatever, and I launch it and it bombs. And not only that it bombs, but I look back on it and I go, yeah, I don't even really care that much about that topic, which I've done before. I could have just made a YouTube video and found out about that. That's on the negative side. On the positive side though, a while back I made a piece of content on Alan Watts' Backwards Law, a short form video, and it did really well. So I turned around and I was like, I'll make a long form video out of this. Obviously, it was interesting for me to make. People seem to like it, so make a long form, and that long form video is still doing really well. So point is, number 3, utilize other platforms to test whether or not you should make it into a long form video. All right, so this one might be a little controversial. Before I get into it, if you are still watching this, I appreciate you. And while you're here, you might as well hit the like button, subscribe, do all that fun stuff before I go over the last and final kind of tip here. All right, so like I said, this one's probably a little controversial, which is more strategy means less content. Now, in my personal experience, all right, take this with a grain of salt. It's what worked for me. Hopefully it can work for you. But something that I've noticed is the more that I overcomplicate things, the more I start thinking about strategy and who am I trying to talk to, who's my target audience, what are my content pillars, all that stuff leads me to overthink, which leads me to not make any content. So literally, it's a really good example. I've been trying to figure out, all right, what is kind of the perfect type of content that I can make that fits me, that I can make a lot. I've been jotting down notes and ideas and blah, blah, blah. And during that time, 2 weeks passed, I didn't realize that I literally made not a single piece of content during that time. So here's what worked for me. I forgot the guy's name. If you remember who said this, do me a favor, go in the comments and link his channel there so I don't feel like a jerk stealing somebody's idea, not giving him credit. But he said something like, there are 2 types of YouTube creators. There are the types that are super analytical and they'll sharpen their blade 18,000 times before they hit that publish button. Meaning like Matt Diavella, for example. I mentioned him earlier. I think his cadence is like 1 video a month. He shoots, he plans every shot. He's a filmmaker, okay? So that makes sense why he does the way he does. I am not one of those people. And then there's people that have this like archaeological dig type of approach where they just make content on various stuff that interests them. And then when one channel or one video works really well, they'll go, ooh, what's another topic in that same vein that I can hit? And they'll just keep digging until they kind of hit pay dirt. Archaeological dig, is that dinosaurs? I was gonna say they find gold. I don't think that's, or is that paleontologist? Paleontologist? Anyway, I don't know, somebody let me know. It's been a while since I watched Jurassic Park. Anyway, the point is, I think I'm more on the side of the archaeological digger, the person that just makes content that I want to make. If it hits, cool. But I also am planning on being this in the long run. I'm planning on making content for the long run. So if one video doesn't hit, it's not a big deal because literally next week I'm gonna make another piece of content. It's more, to me at this point, it's more about quantity over quality. I know how that sounds, but in my experience, the more videos I put out, the better I'll get. The better I get, the more I'll probably want to do it. So it's through quantity that I'll get better at this whole creating content thing. Testing things out. Some things won't work, but it is what it is. With that being said, that's number 4. I am no Mr. Beast, if you can tell. As of this video, it's not like I have a bunch of subscribers and really authority on the subject. I just know what works for me. And so I want to hear from you. What have you found that's worked for you in this journey of creating content? Are you someone that believes in niching down and really making sure that like content wise, you're really hyper focused, or you're doing what I'm doing, experimenting, seeing what works, and going from there. With that being said, hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go finish this workout. As always, I'll catch you in the next video. See you guys.